Let's go into the big rabbit hole. In the last video we showed how a piece of consciousness can create space by assuming a view of dimension. In this video we're going to look at how a particle is created in 3D space. When you first assume a viewpoint in space, you don't have a whole lot to work with. You only have two building blocks. Basically you have space and non-space, and the interplay between those two things. To make something to look at in empty space, you can work with the non-space and space to create a falsehood, for example time, and flow something between space and non-space to make it persistent. Now if you were to just create a non-space hole in space, it would collapse and fill in with space. So that would be just essentially like a ripple on a pool of water. It would disappear after a short time. Even though you have introduced the concept of time, it's not a real solid persistence. A better way to create persistence through time is to do what both dolphins and scuba divers do when they are manipulating the medium of water versus air. An interesting aspect out of the torus made from water and air is that it's fairly stable and acts as if it's a particle itself with mass and momentum. I speculate that this is what's going on when mass is generated from a torus between space and non-space. There is quite a bit of motion in a torus ring. Most people think a torus ring is just like a breakfast donut, there's nothing moving. But as you can see in this video, and the jellyfish that got caught up in it, there's quite a bit of motion and spinning going on in the toroid. Thankfully no damage came to the jellyfish. We don't know too much about the physical properties of space, also called vacuum, and some traditional scientists even today are still arguing whether there is something in empty space or not. I have the opinion that space is a super cold solid, and the material things and particles that we see are just an interaction or an interplay between space and non-space. This view of the vacuum makes things a lot simpler, and we can do away with the concept of always dividing the atom and the atomic particles into smaller and smaller pieces. We just assume that space is a solid and the particles of atoms and elementary particles are just the interplay between space and non-space. In other words, it's a falsehood. It just has the appearance of something solid, but in reality it's just a frequency or a vibration between space and non-space, the spiritual domain. So there you have it. In short, space or vacuum is actually a super cold solid, and how particles are not moving and they're actually just blinking in and out of existence along a motion of travel.